Dr. Hargens, members of the Jefferson County Board of Education, we, the leaders of your employee unions, AFSCME, JCTA, SEIU, JCSNA, and Teamsters, stand here before you today united in our strong support for safe and well-staffed schools and buses. When it comes to discipline, we want to be very clear that we are not for the status quo. With our current approach, we see the number of suspensions increasing, with a disproportionate number of those suspensions being students of color, and all the while, employees report behavior to be deteriorating. This is not acceptable. To fix this, we believe employees, parents, and the community must work together to rethink our entire approach to student behavior. Rather than spending most of our time on the back end debating the wording of the rules and consequences, we need to be focusing on what can be done on the front end to help students own and follow the rules. Let's find districts that are having success with this and use them to guide our work here. Let's work on the root causes of student behavior problems, not just try to sweep the symptoms under the rug by eliminating the possibility of suspensions for serious and sometimes dangerous violations of the code. We also stand before you to express our passionate opposition to freezing salaries and step increases for all employees in schools and on buses. Many of our classified employees are making less than the living wage, and some are essentially working for health insurance. We all know that poverty is the enemy of education, so JCPS needs to set an example for the entire community by ensuring that every full-time employee earns a living wage. But sadly, since Dr. Hargens became superintendent, the teacher salary schedule and all those tied to it through Me Too agreements have lost 2.1% to inflation. This erosion is even worse for certified employees because 2% more is now being taken out of our checks for our pension. So compensation for certified employees has actually moved the wrong direction by 4.1%. We appreciate that many members of the school board and district administrative leaders have said they see competitive salaries as a positive for our district and that should be valued. But if you have something you really value, you take care of it and you support it, you don't freeze it. If you have value, if you value competitive salaries and want to build on them, you don't let them erode to inflation. At the very least, you do all you can to keep them competitive, and that's what we're asking for. On behalf of the more than 10,000 employees we represent, we ask you to work with us on these issues. Please help us keep safe and well-staffed schools that our students deserve. Thank you and good evening.
But after listening to some of the conversation, I felt the need about the salary study and the student discipline code. Salary study was done in 7 of the school districts that they chose to interview or to model this program after we're in right to work states. I would hope Kentucky and the city of Louisville would support or would hope to rise better than a right to work state. Their salaries are lower, the education benefits are lower across the board. The discipline issue, and you wouldn't think the Teamsters Union, which, you know, we had bus drivers, we had guys to turn these lights on, we had guys they had the heating there, we had the guys that cut the grass, trim the trees, plow the parking lot, fix the stuff in the school. Then we have the bus drivers who transport over 75,000 students a day to and from school and after school activities. Discipline's a big issue on bus. 3 years ago, I put billboards up trying to draw attention to that, and it continues. And now this new code of conduct that seems to come out seems to lessen the discipline even more than what it already is. Two hardest jobs in the district would be a teacher and a school bus driver. We ask you, when you do this, we ask you when you do these salary studies, you know, $14 an hour may sound a lot to a lot of people, but you can go to McDonald's, you can go some of the other places, $12, $13 an hour. You're entrusting these people out in this room and across the school district with your children. I think more than $14 an hour is something they can learn. A lot of them have their kids that go to school here. They went to school here. They're part of the community. They've been here for a long time, so they're vested in the community. But like I said, our issues are the salary study, and I would hope the district would hope to be better than a right to work state. And I would hope this one, there's not a person in this room driving a school bus or teaching our children that wants to suspend a student. But isn't it the job of the Board of Education to educate our students so when they come out here? Not all of them are going to college. A lot of them are going to the workforce. They can't be on time, they can't behave, they can't accept discipline. They're not gonna last in the job. You do this study, get our input. We're out there every single day. I challenge you, son, ride a school bus. Not a school bus that's in a good area. They're low performing. And they're low performing because of economic issues and maybe single parent families. And they need all the help they can get. So go on those schools and look at those things when you make some of these decisions and think about how it impacts the life of all your employees there. Thank you.
Who I understand is talking about the salary freeze is Patricia Meltzer. Patricia Meltzer, is that the right topic for you? If you're here? Ms. Meltzer? Okay, the next speaker is Sylvia Lister. Sylvia Lister. Ms. Lister, is that the appropriate topic? Am I reading this correctly?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to talk about topics that have been removed from today's agenda. I am an educator who spent 10 years in priority high schools with JCPS. My story is one of personal commitment. In May 2015, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I began chemo treatment in June. The first trimester of my school year was spent arguing with doctors about when I could be seen. I missed only a handful of days for appointments that couldn't be done outside the school day. I was neutropenic twice in the fall, which means my white blood cell count was low for several days, even weeks at a time. I put myself at risk for infection by coming into work. Through nausea, hot flashes, weakness, and exhaustion, I worked. I knew missing days of school would hurt my students. I am a math teacher, and with there constantly being a shortage in my area, I knew that a weak Miss Lister was better than a healthy sub who didn't know the content or my kids. I am a committed teacher. I could not have come into work if I didn't feel safe in my school. The proposed discipline code would not have made me feel safe. When students make impulsive decisions, they do not receive time away from the situation. They are not safe. Adults need time after an incident to be notified or to simply investigate and take action that can prevent another more serious incident. When this time is taken away, I do not feel safe. I would have missed more days and my students would have had someone less qualified. On the first Monday of winter break, which was 3 days before Christmas, I had a double mastectomy. I planned that date so I could use my winter vacation to recover. I am a committed educator. I took the shortest amount of time off I could. I came back to work 4 weeks after my major surgery. I missed only 10 days of instruction with my students. I spent my time during my leave ensuring they had access to instruction through multiple avenues, not just a sub. You see, ladies and gentlemen of the board, I am a committed teacher. Again, still in pain from my recent major surgery, I worked because I felt safe. I felt needed, and even though the district did nothing to make me feel valued, I assumed I was, because they also did nothing that made me feel otherwise. In February, I began 5 weeks of radiation treatment. I'm sure at this point you know I'm committed, so even when that became incredibly painful, so much so that I spent my time alone fighting off tears, I worked. But again, if I didn't feel safe, I wouldn't have come to work. On May 2nd, I had an outpatient surgery to help heal my radiated skin. I was back at school the next day. I missed 1 period of instruction. Looking back at this year, I couldn't have been the committed educator I wanted to be in an environment where safety was not the main concern, especially in a priority school. I couldn't have had any moments of joy for my students to help me heal. You say things like you want to freeze my cost of living pay. You say that because it makes it sound like you are freezing my ability to pay for luxuries. It sounds less damaging that way. I want to make it clear to you that when you freeze my cost of living raise, you are literally freezing my cost of surviving raise. You are freezing my ability to pay for $10,000 plus of medical bills that I get as a benefit for being a committed educator. I and many others with difficult medical conditions are still committed to our jobs, regardless of how difficult life becomes. This is not just business, this is personal. You may have never made me feel particularly valued before, but if these changes are implemented, I will certainly feel devalued, regardless of what you say.
not going to be here all night. The next speaker, I believe on salary, is Jennifer Wibbles. Jennifer Wibbles.
Sir, it's salary and code of conduct, both subjects, is that okay?
Well, we're trying to separate them for each on salary or code of conduct so that we can get rolling.
Let's go.
Go ahead.
Say what you want.
Greetings, board members. I've been teaching in our district as a special educator for about 13 years now. I've seen a lot, but I did not see this coming. It's hard not to take this personal. I would expect such a move from the state level at this point, an attempt to push merit-based pay, charter schools, pay freezes. Needless to say, I did not anticipate this from the leadership in my own district. Bottom line, if you value public education, how can you devalue our students and teachers? Anyone who has been in the classroom recently still knows that an attempt to extract student learning from teaching for the purpose of budget management or anything else is really just entertaining illusions. Even people who subscribe to business models have to concede that data shows when your workers are happy, they will produce more. So if you want to reduce student learning, continue to threaten the livelihood of those who want to facilitate meaningful and effective educations. In fact, our district's announcement that pay freezes and now layoffs might be a feasible option reminds me of the Flint, Michigan conundrum. It's really not a stretch when one understands that the whole disaster started because the mayor of Flint wanted to save $22 million as quickly as possible rather than waiting 2 years for a safe pipe system to be finished. Yes, Flint was and is bankrupt. However, now it's looking at a $55 million deficit to replace the pipes. Some even speculating that when everything is said and done, it's a $1 billion problem with repercussions in the community that cannot be undone. Throwing teachers under the bus to help our children is tantamount to poisoning the water in our own proverbial wells, and no good will come of it. Finally, as a special educator who has worked with a myriad of populations and who works in a school that went from low achieving to proficient, I've witnessed the nuts and bolts of what it takes to meet our children's needs. It's collaborative, it's a team-based approach that requires resources and time. Certainly, Good Plan is data-driven and revolves around goals which best serve our students. Without resources and time to implement an individual plan, it's a wash. So in many ways, I get it. I'm not a proponent of zero tolerance. I know the data doesn't support it, but I also know you can't ask a district full of students and teachers and administrators to come up with new ideas for addressing violent and sexual offenders while stripping them of resources and demoralizing them by reducing pay. Swinging the pendulum from zero tolerance to restorative justice won't work unless we utilize discerning wisdom through the creation of a code which allows for flexibility in its application. So knowing all this as an educator makes the news that my district thinks I'm paid too much pretty hard to take. Knowing what it means to be an effective educator, and quite frankly, all that we allow to roll off our shoulders in the service of our students, makes it hard to stomach the implicit assertion that we're part of the problem instead of the solution. Knowing as a special educator what it means in real terms to help our most challenging students, to meet with outside services multiple times to resolve the issues of a student with caprices gives me pause. Knowing what it takes to help students with Fragile X syndrome thrive in an intensely social and stimulating environment gives me pause. And surviving a school shooting gives me pause.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would hope that
Our
our
next speaker.
board would also take pause and support educators who do the jobs we love and care for so dearly.
Our next speaker. Our next speaker is Gabriella Combs, who I believe is speaking on salary. Ms. Combs, are you here? Okay. Ms. Combs? No. Okay. Our next speaker, we're going to shift over now to Code of Conduct. To the extent we're not there already. We have Ms. Janina Thomas. Ms. Thomas, are you here? Okay. Laurie Carrico. Ms. Carrico, are you here? Okay, nobody's Nobody's in the overflow rooms, right?
Correct.
Okay. Next is Kumar Rashad. Kumar Rashad. Next is Matt Keefe from Local 3972. I apologize, Mr. Keefe, you may have already been spoken for. If you're here, are you here? Was that covered already? Brent, do you know?
I do not.
Okay. All right, Mr. Keefe is not here. Michael Lindsay.
You got past his bedtime.
Sorry?
That was a student, he got past his bedtime.
Okay, sorry. All right, Michael Lindsay is not here. All right. We're now going to move into some other topics.
They got
We have Glenn Ruger on military veteran concerns. Thanks for being with us tonight. Take your time. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. 1 bell will ring at the end of 2.5, and 2 at the end of 3.
Dr. Hargis, members of the board, honored guests, I am a retired soldier and entered the teaching profession under the Troops to Teachers program, a federal program designed to bring experienced veterans into inner city schools. The idea was to introduce the soldierly values of duty, honor, country, and commitment into the classroom to provide a real-world role model of selfless sacrifice and dedication to students consumed by minimalism, egotism, and entitlement. In my 10 years of service with JCPS, I was always proud of our collaborative, cooperative relationship with our district administration. We all had the best interests of our children at heart. In public schools, success is measured in positive educational outcomes for students, not in cost reductions. The pay equity study compares our teachers, 84% of whom hold graduate degrees, to Austin teachers, 28% graduate degrees. If we want pay equity, shouldn't our teachers be earning what the average professional with a master's degree earns? By that standard, we are woefully underpaid. For those who remember December 26th at Mall St. Matthews, or the summer mayhem at Waterfront Park, the compensation above the average could be considered hazardous duty pay. Market reconciliation is only appropriate for manufacturing for-profit organizations seeking to remain competitive in the marketplace, not for educational institutions tasked with teaching children. Are we going to discount our children's education because they do in Texas? Not on my watch. Any actions affecting pay and working conditions should include good faith negotiations with the union. We want to continue our tradition of insisting upon highly qualified teachers. A step freeze is a step in the wrong direction. Any decisions made about discipline should be supported by research. They should be a collaborative effort, engaging all stakeholders. The school-to-prison pipeline will not be curtailed by a more permissive discipline code that will only denigrate the educational climate for the majority of students who never incurred discipline. It appears as if the current focus has placed cutting expenses above the welfare of our children. It appears as if political correctness has been placed above the safety of our children and teachers. Please consider refocusing actions that improve educational outcomes for all of our students. That is the reason I answer our nation is the call to teach. It's an extension of my service to the nation. Class size matters. Busing denigrates parental engagement. Thank you.
Speakers are going to be on the subject of sex education. We have 3 of them signed up. Julian Nethery. Julian Nethery. Ms. Nethery, you have 3 minutes, 1 bell after 2.5, 2 after 3. Thank you for being with us tonight. Julian, I'm sorry.
My name is Jillian Nethery, and I'm here to offer insight about the intersection of comprehensive sex education and intimate partner violence. I've worked as a trained hospital advocate for the Center for Women and Families, in which I offered support to survivors of sexual assaults in emergency rooms. I've also received extensive training and education on the dynamics of human trafficking. I am a survivor of intimate partner violence, and this summer will mark 5 years' time since I escaped my abusive relationship. From November 2010 to July 2011, I experienced sexual violence, threats of murder, threats of rape, and psychological abuse at the hands of my older male partner. I was 17 years old, and I was a junior in high school. I didn't speak up about the abuse being committed against me for many reasons. My abuser threatened me on a daily basis, and I was afraid to leave him. Even though I was terrified, I was made to believe that he was the only person who cared about me. After years of recovery, I can say that I have worked really hard to be here. A large factor in staying silent was that I felt I would be judged harshly by my community for being sexually active. I had heard so many messages in my life that told me once a woman has sex that she is somehow damaged and worthless. So instead of seeking help, I stayed quiet. I now know that those things aren't true, but at the time, I didn't have access to resources regarding sexual health and relationship dynamics. For future generations of young people, comprehensive sex education can provide these avenues. Comprehensive sex education goes far beyond the mechanics of human anatomy. It encompasses the context of healthy relationships, provides tools for students to learn platforms of respect and equality, and helps students identify potentially dangerous power dynamics between partners. It also promotes a culture in which students no longer feel shame about their sexuality, but can seek necessary information and help in critical situations. Intimate partner violence is here, and it is a public health issue. Based on data reported by the Center for Disease Control, in 2014, 22% of women and 15% of men first experienced some form of partner violence between the ages of 11 and 17. But education is one of the strongest tools we have to eradicate violence. One bystander intervention training program, Green Dot Across the Bluegrass, teaches people how to intervene safely and prevent violence. Results from a groundbreaking 5-year study of Green Dot participants showed a 40% reduction in student-reported sexual violence, sexual harassment, stalking, and dating violence among ages 14 to 18. That was a 40% reduction. Implementing similar training in the JCPS sex ed curriculum can be a vital tool for our educators to tackle some of the classroom safety issues that they face. We can no longer afford to stigmatize sex education and deny young people resources that could save their lives. It is the duty of this school board to pass comprehensive sex education guidelines, opening a pathway to positive cultural change in our rural communities.
Lydia Mason on the same topic. Ms. Mason, you also have 3 minutes. 1 bell after 2.5. 2 after 3.
JCPS, it is time to educate our youth. As a school board, you have promised a high-quality education to me and over 100,000 other students here in Jefferson County. This education should not only prepare us for standardized tests, but it should prepare us for life. The school board already requires a health credit in order for us to graduate. However, we need to analyze what this health credit really means for a diverse group of students. The people of Jefferson County are not a monolith, and we must remember that when making our curriculum. This means that our curriculum, particularly in sex education, needs to be comprehensive enough to educate and protect all of our students, not just students with accurate sex education at home or with access to adequate reproductive health care. We need a guideline for one of the most universally necessary forms of our curriculum, comprehensive sex education. Currently, there is a disparity that has been made between the haves and have-nots, and minorities, like myself, are suffering because of it. Although the average birth rate for white teens is only 27 out of every 1,000 in Metro Louisville, the teen birth rate in predominantly black neighborhoods such as Russell is as high as 1 in 10. This is more than a disparity in teen pregnancy. This is disparity in our future and our success. Only 50% of teen mothers receive a high school diploma by age 22, compared to 90% of women who are not teen mothers. This disparity between black and white communities perpetuates the cycle of limitation and oppression economically, socially, and academically for African Americans here in our city. When our communities have a 10% pregnancy rate, higher rates of domestic abuse, teen dating violence, and account for 45% of all diagnosed HIV cases in the state, we know it is time to forge a better future for all of us. And there is no better way to impact our future or our youth than through education. This means giving our educators the coverage to provide continuous, accurate, and age-appropriate information about human sexuality and development, so that those who don't get exposure to those things at home can be properly informed at school rather than on the streets. This means teaching students about healthy relationships and how to avoid any kind of abusive relationship. This means debunking myths about sex and ways to prevent pregnancy, and teaching about safe sex without reservation, comprehensively and in depth. We need to teach our youth about having strong values and healthy attitudes about sex, so they feel comfortable asking questions before it is too late, and being responsible about taking initiative on their own reproductive health. This is why we need guidelines from our school board to set this in motion, and we need these guidelines placed on the agenda sooner rather than later. JCPS
Prior to holding this role, I taught a comprehensive sex education curriculum within the community to at-risk youth through a U of L grant-funded program entitled CHAMPS. I ran into many roadblocks when attempting to bring a similar program to my school. Administrators were not certain if we could bring comprehensive sex education to our students, and as a result, informed me that we could not provide this resource. Our school health teacher informed me that while it is his understanding that JCPS policy allows an abstinence-based curriculum to be taught, many schools do not implement this type of program due to fear of parent retaliation or unclear district sexual health guidelines. As a result, schools use a hands-off approach when it comes to teaching sexual health to students. My daughter attends the 9th grade high school at JCPS, and she has not yet once received comprehensive sex education. Since working as a Frisky, we have had a few pregnancy scares within our middle school. I learned at the beginning of this school year that one of our 8th grade students became pregnant with twins right after her promotion. This school year, a 7th grader came into my office and told me that she thought she was pregnant. Thankfully, she was not, but in order for her to have that scare, she had to be participating in sexual activity. In March, one of my 8th grade students approached me and asked me if I could teach her about sex. She stated that her mother was uncomfortable talking to her about it, and her mother told her to ask someone in school. I told her to ask the principal, as I've been trying to bring something similar to that to the school and never been given permission. The student was informed by administration that this could not occur, and that if I wanted to educate her about sex, that I needed to do it on my own time and outside of the school building. Similarly, I had a parent approach me, and this was just last month in April, and asked me if we taught sex education because she noticed her 6th grade daughter was displaying curiosity regarding sex. It was rumored that a few of the students at the school were watching porn through a shared social media site. Unfortunately, I was not able to offer that parent the support that she was seeking. I do not believe administration is intentionally being negligent. They have evaded the topic because of unclear guidelines regarding what can and cannot be taught to students about sex. It is this better be safe than sorry approach that many schools operate under that unfortunately negatively affects our students. I have received a number of calls from groups like U of L and Bellman nursing students who are willing to come and look for opportunities to teach our students about sexual health. Despite these resources being free of cost to JCPS and to parents, I was not able to set up that support because of the inconsistent guidelines. We need clear, consistent guidelines for students in order to clear up any confusion administrators and teachers might hold. That's why we need your help. Our students now witness more sexualized behavior than they did in the past. So why not teach them about puberty, sexual health, and responsible decision making?
Sexton, you have 3 minutes. We'll go on to the half. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you guys. Thanks for staying so late. I'm just a little lead teacher, but I and my students have lived through all of your changes. Changes that have created our current volatile climate in our schools. You have left our school, our at-risk students, our neediest students, in the dark without a flashlight. Our at-risk students make up the vast majority of discipline issues. A few years ago, you rewrote the Code of Conduct without adding in any wraparound services, and that has equaled the current violent climate that we have now. We all want all students to learn. That's why we're all here. But some of our kids need more help than others. You need to implement your RP, PBIS, SRT, or the next shiny program you see at the elementary level first. Then you must pay for and keep full wraparound services. Then you need to rewrite a code of conduct that not only implements a behavior modification program, but also a progressive discipline program so that students receive these services and the consequences that will ensure their success not only in school, but in life.
Thank you. Next is Rob Matthew on Vision 2020 and engagement with the community. Mr. Matthew, you know the rules, 2.5 for a bell. 3, 2 bells.
In the Vision 2020 strategy document presented by Dr. Hargan's staff and approved by this board, you laid out the following strategy under communications, engagement, and access to information as part of your plan to, quote, build and strengthen relationships with families, stakeholders, and the community. Strategy 3.2.4 says, listen and respond to stakeholders. Develop and implement regular systemic processes and structures to identify, understand, and respond to stakeholder needs. Now, I want to ask you, looking at what's happened this week, these past 2 weeks, looking outside, looking here at this reaction, are you all being responsive to the needs of the community? Do you even understand that pulse? Let's go over the events of this past 2 weeks. Months of feedback we've had, serious discipline issues discussed from teachers, parents, students, and the community. JCPS releases discipline recommendations at a work session, and no one there seems happy about what's been recommended. Same day, a salary study that explicitly recommends a pay freeze to be presented on today, May 10th. June is presented. There's no time for anybody to review or respond either in person or to the representative with questions. This appears a week before Teacher Appreciation Week. The salary study documentation is a mess, includes a heavily cut and pasted PowerPoint, no real information about the study's methodology. To this layperson, it appeared that lots of key information about the study was missing. The PowerPoint mentions a community advisory team that includes 5 current JCPS administrators, including Dr. Hargan, a board member of former JCPS employee, attorneys, and senior HR reps from local companies. There's nothing that indicates how or why this makeup was chosen, why teachers, staff, and other community members were not considered to help or critique the study. I asked the entire board if there was a consultant's report that described the methodology to guide their decisions. This was me seeking information that would help me determine what really was going on. One board member forwarded my email to Allison Martin, 2 others tried to help me, 4 others I didn't hear back from. I sent my question to Tom Hudson, who did provide me a final copy, and I appreciate that, and he did offer to discuss that with me. But that final copy of the report was dated May 6, 2016, several days after it was presented to the board. JCPS removed the item today, no explanation given that I'm aware of. Dr. Hargan's communication team went into student mode after about a week later, after the report was given, saying that the community advisory team was made up of human resource and financial professionals from leading local companies. Again, not mentioning that they were on the list that we all saw in that PowerPoint. If we're going to blame the media, you can blame me too, and you can blame a lot of people here. We've all read the documentation. If it's not what we're supposed to read, or not what we're supposed to see, or there's more information, I'd love to see it. And I think that's something that would help build and strengthen your all's relationship with me and the rest of this community. So I hope you're listening tonight. I hope you're listening to people out here, and that you're taking this to heart, and that this guides your decisions in the future and helps strengthen this community. So thank you.
Next is Tim Druck. Tim Druck. You're here speaking on performance of school board and superintendent.
Good evening. I'm sure you guys have heard my name a lot last week, and I'll thank you for the 3 minutes that I get to speak to this august and distinguished panel. I had a booming condemning speech written for tonight from the city on the podium, and the courage of one person in this room changed my mind about giving that speech. She sat here and I listened to her voice crack with emotion as she used words like a culture of silence and a code of secrecy. And I realized those were the reasons that I'm standing here today in front of you, because those are things that we don't want. And I want to applaud Madam Horn for her courage in facing every one of you and letting us know that the emperor is wearing no clothes. My name is Tim Druck, and that's not really important because I'm not here to speak my mind today. I'm here to let people like Madam Horn know that she is not alone. I stand here with over 5,400 signatures from our community, and we are not questioning the leadership of Dr. Hargan. We know what we think. Okay? We do see that we have a culture of dishonesty and secrecy and silence in this school system. We see that the performance of our schools is sliding quickly into the realm of failure. And we want to be very clear to the school board in the statement that we'll make. We want our teachers to make more money than other communities so that we don't lose them to other communities. We want safer and more effective classrooms so that our students can learn more effectively in those classrooms. I've sat here and watched this board meeting tonight and been amazed. I waited 4 hours for my turn to speak. And I don't want to take up all of your time here. I'm not here to present a list of names of petition signers that would imply that this is over, that we're going to walk away with our message delivered and be happy about what we've said. This is not over by any measure. I'm going to go home tonight, and we're going to continue this movement to demand accountability from the school board, from our superintendent, and from our community. We're going to take ownership in our school system because that's what we believe is best for our children. These 5,400 signatures were collected over 5 days over a Derby weekend. I assure you that that was not a small accomplishment, but it was not done with a great amount of effort. If we don't see the results that we're looking for in a change of culture in this community and in this school system, I assure you that we will find out exactly how much we can accomplish between now and November 2nd. Thank you for your time.
Baker to offer a student perspective on discipline.
Good evening. I am Cadet Sergeant First Class Scott Baker, and I am a freshman at Eastern High School. I would like to address you tonight about the disciplinary situation in Jefferson County Public Schools. The current state of discipline is already under duress. Many children are not facing consequences for their actions. I've seen many disruptions and overall bad behavior in the classrooms and in the hallways, like kids walking out of class and being rude and disrespectful to our teachers and our staff. Some of these students receive referrals, but after a brief trip to the office, they return to class, often with no real consequences or remedy for their behavior. These are major interruptions that distract everyone from life. I have many concerns about how negatively the proposed changes will impact me and my fellow classmates. I believe that if these changes are passed, nothing will stop the misbehaving students from descending into anarchy. And I say again, anarchy. Or even worse, seriously injuring or maiming someone else. In fact, we've had several people hurt already by students at Eastern, Ballard, and Jeffersontown High School. Instead of not holding students accountable for their persistent, disruptive behavior, I have a proposal. One of the largest Army installations in the U.S. is in our metro, Fort Knox. Why not partner with them to create alternative schools for middle and high school students who need the most extreme intervention? These alternative school students will learn discipline, respect, and will build a support system for each other, and we will be teaching them leadership. For elementary school students, alternative programs would include more counselors and behavior specialists to help students emotionally and learn how to cope with their challenges at home and in the classroom. In the end, all I want is for us students to learn as much as we can in the day and to be safe in school. Changing the code of conduct without providing much needed support and structure moves us farther away from those expectations. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Gay Adelman. Gay Adelman, with a presentation entitled Our Last Hope. Ms. Adelman, you have 3 minutes, 1 bell after 2.5.
Thank you. As a newcomer to Louisville a few years ago, and upon our selection of a magnet, which happened to be a priority school in the West End, I was immediately sucked into the dysfunction that is JCPS. I saw blatant disconnects and easy fixes, and I made an effort to be part of the solution. Along the way, I met many people who said, "You're wasting your time. The district is going to do what it wants to do." Pollyanna and me said, "They just don't have the info they need to make good decisions. Teachers are afraid to speak up." But the answers were clear if you knew where to look. So we spoke at board meetings, we wrote proposals, but we were shut out. Calls were not returned. We were treated as hostile, and we were lied to. Sure enough, the district continued to do what it wanted to do. That's when I said, these are our schools, our kids, our tax dollars. So we started Dear JCPS, and that's when we found many more who were beaten down, ignored, had issues swept under the rug, parents who had no choice but to resort to lawsuits. We were drawn to each other like a moth to a flame. Suddenly, the district's ability to ignore the problem long enough so that it would go away was in jeopardy. Repeated attempts were made to discredit and derail our group. Because district leaders did not authentically respond to our questions and concerns early on, they appear to have a hidden agenda. And now the district lies and misdeeds are becoming undeniable. When you sign off on out-of-touch recommendations that are obtained with no genuine input from stakeholders, when we are asked to pick one of 3 options of which 2 are not even viable, that is not brainstorming, that is manipulation. A state senator shadowed my son yesterday, but some of our district leaders entrusted with making some of the most important decisions in our city can't be bothered to do the same. Public education is under attack nationwide. Your complicity that allows them to undermine the success of our district and expedite, not thwart, its demise is criminal. Your negligence is not only filling the pipeline to prison, it is filling the pipeline to the morgue. 2 of my son's classmates have been murdered this year. Murdered. If you lived in a war zone, not knowing if you or someone you loved could be killed at any moment, and you were required to come to school and in many cases bussed across town and forced to sit for ridiculous tests and test prep that do not teach you what you need to escape the war zone, but instead are used to label and place more hurdles and burdens in your way. Yes, we need a more equitable code of conduct, but more importantly, we need the supports in place to make sure it's successful. These are our children's lives and futures you're playing with. We did not elect you to boost your resume, satisfy your philanthropic goals, so you could throw your influence around on the golf course or the boardroom. We elected you to fix our broken school system. If you think the media is to blame for this debacle, you're not getting it. But the community is, and we're outraged. Our school board is the last hope to save public education in Louisville. You either take this bull by its horns, or we will vote you out.
JCPS Invested Savings. Matthew Johnson, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I just brought a couple of visuals here tonight. This is me, class of 2000, Louisville Middle High School. Everyone take a look. Every morning I'm sure you come into work, you probably see my poster outside, me teaching 2 rambunctious first graders at the time. I am an electrifying teacher, and I've been committed to JCPS for 8 years now. But that's not what I want to talk to you about tonight. I'm not going to talk to you and expose you and what's going on in the classrooms. I'm talking to you tonight from the standpoint of a parent. I am a former JCPS graduate with 12 years of student experience. I am a teacher with 7 years of teaching experience and a parent of JCPS student. Invested in JCPS schools for just about 30 years now. My daughter's currently in a second grade magnet program right here in JCPS. I chose her to follow in my footsteps and attend a traditional school setting. For the last 2 years, she has been bullied. She has been kicked, teased, taunted, and had sexual advances made towards her multiple times. Now, she's my only child. We have not disclosed what sex is in my household, nor has she seen or heard me talk of those things, as I am the leader of the community. I don't just put her in situations where she is exposed to that. But believe me, she's learned more in the 7 months of education this year than she's learned ever. I will say my experience this year has been mind-blowing. I want you to take a look at my daughter, Jacqueline. I didn't bring it big because I didn't want to truly expose the details, the graphic details that have been going on with my daughter in a JCPS school this year. I have witnessed and walked alongside my child in the struggle to protect her this year. Most often, I get no resolution. The red tape that me and my husband had to endure, taking off days from my classroom to investigate, to see if my daughter is being protected, to see if policies are in place, and to no avail, there are none. This year, going through those 2 horrific incidents, and each time no real resolution took place. Apparently, there are policies, but no one knows them or follows them. Now, these policies are to be changed in the meantime, but we're cultivating schools that are teaching treacherous behaviors. Every day, we wait for the board and our leaders to act more and more as our kids are graduating their skill level of misconduct. I understand that everyone's hands are tied. I just want to know whose hands are free. When? I am sick and tired of not being able to help my child, my students, everywhere that I go. It is getting out of hand. I would like the teachers, the parents, the community to be on board when you make the decisions of our school code of conduct. As I've said, I've been invested in JCPS for 30 years. I've been in the seat. I've gone along with many superintendents. I want some change. Thank you.
Next is Stephen Johnson. On communication issues at JCPS and the consequences thereof.
First of all, let me say thank you very much, and thank all you guys, troopers. It's been a long night. You know, around the applause. I'd like to address how poor communications between the superintendent's office and the district affects the tone and success of our schools. Each performance review of the superintendent has cited communications as an area of concern. It's an area of concern for me as well. The result of poor communications, of mixed messages, is creates a fog of paralyzing mistrust. Mistrust between the superintendent's office and principals, between principals and teachers, and eventually between JCPS and parents. I'll give you one example. 2 weeks ago, the 26th, the work sessions concerning code of conduct and the compensation review. At the compensation review work session started at 5 o'clock. At 4:47, an email was sent out alerting teachers about a compensation work schedule. 13 minutes is not enough time to prepare and get to that meeting. I fortunately planned ahead, and I was at that meeting. So the mistrust is born of the question, was this an accident, an incompetence, or was it intentional and devious? We don't know. Is it a flaw? Or is it a feature? Again, we don't know. What is to be gained from if it's intentional, and why is the flaw tolerated? My question to the board is, when will Dr. Harkins be held accountable for this repeated failure? When do you expect this issue to be fixed, and how will you measure it? My recommendation is email the agendas ahead of time so teachers can plan to be there, because many teachers don't get out until 4:30, and it's hard to get there. Thank you very much. That's all I got to say.
This concludes our non-agenda item speakers for the evening. The board, will now meet in executive session pursuant to KRS 61.810 to discuss the formative evaluation of the superintendent as permitted by KRS 156.5576C. Is there a motion to hold the executive session? Chris moves, Chuck seconds, all in favor?